I'm going to let you know really what this is all about. Basically, Cecile and I have known each other for years. She's based in Paris, I'm based in London, and we both work in the domain of long-term trends, macro trends, and that's kind of our specialty. And we've always felt like there were a lot of synchronicities and complementary aspects to our work. Cecile focuses more on lifestyle, and I focus more on fashion. And we're quite aligned in our ways of working and our beliefs. So we decided to start this at the beginning to kind of have a shared conversation. Now on to you, Cecile.
Yeah, we saw that it was a very particular time. We feel that we deeply need profound changes. We need time to reflect, and we saw that it would be interesting to have a different tone of voice, trying to, with your help, trying to explain and to better understand what's happening and what does it mean for the future. So that's why we started this Reconnect series. So today, the subject that we're going to clarify is about rituals, and it's also about frugality. So the first topic is how does this confinement allow us to redefine our rituals? So I would like to ask Geraldine the first question. And so Geraldine, what does it mean for fashion?
I think, you know, it's clear that for many people, we realize we don't need as much really. And, you know, we've always, in fashion, it's always been the ritual around wanting to buy into a trend. And that really has been overtaken by an emotion to just be more around self-care and looking at what it is that we truly need, as we've been sort of cleaning up our houses and not needing that much every day. And so there was already a really booming market for wellness. The figures are astounding in terms of also the market growth every day, every year. I mean, it's like at 6% minimum. And that obviously really fits into fashion and beauty. So it's really about self-care. Also in the future, I think we'll be more interested in fashion that helps us with our immune system, helps us with our health, maybe bio clothing that has the right kind of bacteria or minerals or vitamins infused in it, helping us fight against potential diseases. And also it'll be about how do we care for ourselves, but care for our clothing that lasts longer. So we will probably also, I think this crisis has also shown us that we want comfort, we want utility. So it's kind of given a whole other life to casual fashion as well. And it's allowed us to realize that there's another way of just what we want to project to the world on the outside. It's really more about action and wellness. And I'm just kind of really curious where this will affect the luxury market, and something I'm tracking, because in terms of the face masks, Off-White is selling face masks at a minimum of 134 pounds at the moment. It goes up to over 200 on, last I checked today on StockX. So, you know, what is luxury today? Is luxury time? Is luxury wellness? I think that's something we can all have access to without having the budget for luxury brands. So it'll be interesting to see. And I guess within that, I was, you know, obviously there's the idea of the home, and our space fashion is a big thing, you know, working closely with that. So my question to you, Cecile, is, you know, how do you see the evolutions of our rituals at home? I mean, that's like a huge thing. We've been spending so much time at home.
Yeah, it is, and truly, and you know, rituals are very important for us human beings. You find them in every human societies. They are really like a form of communication, because it includes very important rituals like weddings or funerals, but it's also very, you know, daily common action like handshaking or the way you say hello. In France, you know, we do la bise. So how are we going to do that? Because I mean, kissing people is absolutely not possible. So it means that all those little mechanisms are really there to keep a common ground between all of us human beings and adjusting social interactions. So there is something which is interesting. It's called the weak ties, and the weak ties is all the very small rituals that you have with by being interactive with people. So it's the way you say hello to the guy at the cafe where you have your espresso in the morning. It's the fact that you hold the door for your neighbor and make a smile. It's your baker shop that you know at the baker shop they know you very well and they give you your favorite bread without you asking for anything. So all those little interactions that were like small rituals, we don't have them anymore, and this is happening about between 10 and 16 times a day. So we are like starving of rituals. So as you said, Geraldine, today we are at home, spending all the time at home and imagining new rituals, mostly with just our self, because most of us are alone. Some are in couples or family, but a large part of us are alone. So today we find out that time and the relation we have with time and body is very different, and self-care, as you said, is getting more and more important. It's a way of balancing the chaos that is outside by just taking care of yourself. So and also it's like the outside life and the life at home is just completely melted. It's just one. There is not so much boundaries between the professional life and the private life, because you all do that at home. So it's like our kingdom, our playground is now our home. So if we have a quick look at three places in our home, the bedroom, the bathroom, and the living room. So what's happening in it? So the bedroom now is really a kind of a sanctuary, a place where you do meditation, you can do journaling in the morning, you are reading. We have seen in France the success of a yoga kundalini teacher that offers for free meditation every night. She's ending that in 2 days from now. Her name is Lily Barbery. We are looking for the wisdom of ancient celebrations to find out new rituals and new form of spirituality, and to try to keep a little time just for ourselves. In the bathroom is really now, if you are living with other people, the place where you can isolate. You lock the door and there you are. You can take care of yourself. You can indulge yourself. It's like a small holistic spa. In a very, a very small place, but it's a kind of mini spa at home. The living room now is a multifunctional a room, because there you eat, you work, you practice sport. More and more people are doing sport at home. Could be Pilates or yoga, mostly sports that does not need so much space. So what we see is that in the living room, we are nourishing the body and the mind, and trying also to uplift all the soft skills that we know we're going to need. So what we are seeing with the fact that the use of the space is changing, the boundaries are blurring. So what we see is now that all the rooms in our place have a different function, not only just one. It's not just a place where you sleep, but it's multifunctional. The use of digital is everywhere. I mean, there is no restriction. We used our phone and our devices just everywhere. Body and mind are always associated in something like a more holistic way, as you said, Geraldine. And boundaries are fading away. Private, professional, this is all blurred. And we try to have our place like healing places, and self-care is really at the center. And for me, all the rituals, the new rituals that we have been imagining during that confinement, they're going to stay there for a while, because we might be still working from home in the coming months or in the coming weeks. So maybe we're not going to go back to the gym as it was before. So I guess the new rituals are going to be part of our life in the future.
Yeah.
And so I guess, as you said, Geraldine, really it's all about self-care, really. That is really the vast majority of what we are doing and thinking right now. And maybe this leads us also to the second questions we would like to try to answer in this episode. So it's, can frugality and social innovation be the game changer of the future? Because we need the game to change. So how can we change? So Geraldine, what do you think? Is social innovation a real game changer in fashion?
Yes, I mean, when we talk about self-care in the home, now we're also practicing self-care for the we. You know, it's the me and the we that are, the we is very important. And I think I mentioned it in our last week when Virgil Abloh in his Vogue talk, he talked about humanity versus vanity. And then I was informed also that on his Twitter account, he posted a question saying, you know, what do you want from your sneaker? And if you read between the lines, it's really meaning, like, what does a sneaker even mean? I mean, I know what it meant when I worked in streetwear before, you know, sneakers were a luxury item and it was really a lifestyle, but now it's luxury. So what does fashion even mean? It's a big, we're going through like a big existential thing. And as far as like social innovation, we've already seen it happen with brands, you know, stepping in to help with this idea of fashion as therapy, which is something that I also wrote about, or wrote about Cora Rosie Kane on my blog. But also brands like Schuler Duval do this whole idea that we need to clean up the way that we work in fashion, that it's been quite a toxic work environment and cycle as well. But also social innovation, yeah. Look at all of the brands that have been making masks or, you know, re-gearing their factories to make hand sanitizers. I have a link that I'll send right now to everyone, but, you know, with Crocs even just donating 200,000 pairs of shoes to hospitals. So we're seeing fashion brands help governments because governments didn't have the budgets or they were unprepared. And so there's that aspect. But there's also a behavioral shift, like you were talking about ancient rituals, but the social innovation needs to not just look to the future, it needs to look backwards. Can we look at more intuitive, biodiverse ways, also inspired by indigenous ways of living? And with that all together, between the latest technologies, what happened as a result of COVID-19, and then also looking at ancient rituals, how can we create new metrics of progress, new metrics of success? And I just wanted to give a few pointers. There's a book by Rutger Hoekstra. It's called Replacing GDP by 2030, and it's something that maybe some of the viewers want to check out. And it's this idea around a society that's focused less on production and consumption at work and just redefining efficiency. And also this idea I've been reading about around stakeholder capitalism. So it's a system in which companies look more at long-term value for that's not just in the benefit of the financial owners, but looks at customers, employees, suppliers, partners, local communities. So I think that paired on top of the fact of the explosion of the wellness industry and the fact we're looking at improving our lives, not just our looks, It's going to be really critical for the fashion industry, I think, to even survive as a commerce, for it to integrate social innovation, social imperatives, and also a wellness. And I guess, you know, how do you feel like also for you in your expertise, Cecile, how, you know, innovation, social innovation is being pushed forward?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because innovation is for many years a buzzword. You know, we use innovation for everything. And for many people, it's still not very clear what is social innovation and what is the difference between innovation and social innovation. I think with this crisis, maybe many people have a more clear view on it. So I would say that that crisis had made clear that two notions are very important: community and solidarity, and the power of those two words are really huge. So it means that we know that with a kind of crisis like that, we rely on our community. It could be just our family or it could be the neighbors, but it's the link between people. And solidarity is the idea of helping each other. So as you said, Geraldine, I think that what we saw during this crisis is the idea of that we have moved from me to we. And the translation in social innovation, one thing that you can see in a very visible way is that there is a growing demand for digital platforms to support community-based efforts. So I just would like to share 4 examples. First one is in Colombia. It's called Foundation Capital, and they have realized all the chatbots and virtual assistants to provide information that is easy to understand, relevant to the most vulnerable population. So they translate the information from the government in something that is understandable for people. The second initiative and social innovation that I saw, it's a digital health platform in the Middle East and in North Africa called Al-TB, and they are presenting reliable and very up-to-date medical information on the COVID to all the kind of people that are looking for good information. And then in France, we have 2 social innovations that I think are quite interesting. The first one is called Visière Solidaire. So Visière Solidaire is one of the largest solidarity chain to manufacturers protective equipment against COVID. So it's the visors that all the caregivers are in need. So they provide open source 3D plan for that, and they put people in relation, people that have the material, people that have the knowledge. So now it's a group of more than 3,500 people working actively on those products and to deliver them for free to the people that really need them in the hospital. And the last social innovation that for me was very relevant and very meaningful is about food, and food is essential, and it's called Les Chefs avec les Soignants. So it means chefs with the caregivers. And of course, in France, like in many other countries, restaurants are closed, but not the kitchen. So it's 750 chefs that are cooking meals for the people in the hospital. And until now, they have been doing something like more than 44,000 meals for people. So it's chef, but it's also volunteers. It's also a producer of food. It's really a large chain. So I think what this crisis has been clearly put under the light is the fact that we are depending one from each other. We belong to community, and we should act as a kind of group. And that brings me to another question for you, Geraldine, which is also about this idea you have said about maybe owning less, maybe producing less. So do you see that frugality in the near future or already today? Do you see frugality as a driver for creativity?
I mean, definitely, I've seen some really interesting things, even in terms of Days Beauty, who I work with. They just did this whole they did a whole campaign around people creating these beautiful beauty looks with found objects. So Ugly Worldwide, who's a beauty influencer, she's also an artist. She did this whole makeup with eggshells, with hundreds of eggshells, just redoing her skin with just these found materials. But the result was ultra futuristic and creative. And then they also did this thing where they sent out a challenge to the whole community and, you know, beauty innovators, everyone, you know, online, challenge them to create their own looks with household objects inspired by this influencer called Lilacs. And they were facial sculptures for FKA twigs. So it was like a collaboration with Days Beauty for FKA twigs. And so it even makes you think of like that's whole like exploration. If everyone could just mute themselves, please. It sounds like someone, sorry about that. So yeah, I think it's a real driver for creativity, and it's something I experienced even in my career as a designer working in denim. With denim, you have challenges. A trouser is a trouser and it has 5 pockets. So how do you get super creative within these constraints? And so it's the best challenge. And even just in terms of like, recently, it's not necessarily fashion related, but we've looked at Decathlon, which is a sporting goods retailer, who helped researchers convert a diving mask by Easy Breath into respirators. And they just hacked that diving mask with 3D printed parts in order to transform it into a respirator. And these are practices in terms of transforming existing objects or equipment that are really popular in places like Africa and India. I know that I saw that a lot when I lived in Tanzania for a few months. And there's also another reference I'd like to share, and it's a book called Small is Beautiful. And the subtitle of the book is A Study of Economics as If People Mattered. But it does fit into this whole frugal creativity. And it's something that we're going to need in more and more Western countries as we struggle also. Obviously, India and Africa have become very good at injecting a lot of ingenuity in how they reuse, rework things, repair. You know, we see it in Cuba. And we're going to have to do that more and more. And what's interesting here also is that it's about acting fast and thinking on your feet and breaking down the barriers of research development teams and paperwork and these long timelines that we often see in fashion. And so in that sense, smaller brands have an upper hand because they're much more agile. And it'll be interesting to see how big brands adapt. Maybe there'll be more work with smaller brands, and it'll create a sort of a nice harmonious ecosystem. So yeah, I think it's a scenario for thriving, for sure. And so to me, it seems quite clear we can thrive within frugality. So, you know, where do you see this mindset already applied, Cecile?
Yeah, as you said, I think in the last episode, I spoke about frugal innovation. You got innovation, and for me, it's still something very important. But now I was looking at what concrete example can we see already happening, you know, just that we are still in the middle of this crisis of the COVID. And for me, the place where I see this applied clearly, it's in Holland, so not far from Paris and London. I think Dutch people are embracing changes with efficiency and with pragmatism. This is things that they have always been doing. You know, they had been exploring the world very long time ago. They had been fighting with the sea level, with the polders for many years, and they are still fighting because the levels of the sea is rising, obviously. So what we saw is that just recently, the city of Amsterdam has embraced what is called the donut model. to imagine a post-COVID economy. So this model was imagined by a woman named Kate Raworth. She wrote a best-selling book in 2017 called Donut Economy, 7 Ways to Link a 21st Century Economist. And she has also been doing a TED Talk, and you should have a look at it. So the whole idea of the donut is that the inner ring of the donut, where the sprinkles go, represent the ecological ceiling down up. It's the place that you should not go further, because otherwise you're going to damage the planet, you're going to damage the soil, the ocean, the ozone layer, and everything. The inner ring of the donut sets out the minimum we need to have a good life. So, and everyone wants to be in between the inner ring and the outer ring. This is where the food is, this is where everything is. So what's the whole idea of Amsterdam, by applying this model, is really to meet the core needs of all of us, but within the means of the planet. So the idea of the donuts is really to make something very visible, easily to understand how you can put it in practice. And so they are really redefining everything and every decision they are taking as a city within this model of giving the people what they need, but not damaging the planet. And the other example is also in Holland. It's another city, it's Rotterdam. And Rotterdam for a couple of years now is really willing to be the place for circular economy. They didn't wait for the COVID to happen to be on that move. So they want the whole city of Rotterdam to be completely working with circular economy in 2030, so in something like 10 years from now. They want that to be the standard. So circular economy is really about reducing, reusing, and recycling. And so they want to produce the least products that are needed. Everyone will use better product with a long life cycle. The idea is the future is really that the waste no longer exist. So I see in those two cities, in this small country, very good example of how you can use frugality and trying to do more with less, for me, which is really the essence of frugality and of, frugal innovation as well. So I think it's a very, for me, it's very positive to see that big cities like that are really willing to change the game and to be really active and not just to react, but really to act and to create.
Yeah, and I think also this is exciting because it has the potential for wonderful job creation as well. When we see these big initiatives, you know, I just wanted to add to what you were saying. It was so interesting. I think we have to segue into questions.
Yeah, we will. So let's dive into it.
We've got quite a few questions and really, really interesting ones too. So that's exciting.
So maybe we can start with Mercedes. He's asking, how can architecture contribute to these new homes where everything is happening? I think for me, what is funny since the beginning of the confinement is that every time you are speaking with someone, you're asking, do you have a balcony? Do you have a terrace? You know, so I think in the future, it's obvious that the architects will have to pay attention to inside outside possibilities. So balcony and terrace are going to be super important in the new buildings. It's maybe also more green inside buildings. I mean, the way Barcelona is made with, you have a few blocks, you have green, I mean, we obviously see that in Paris, we don't have enough green space. So I think urban planning is really going to be very much affected, the buildings, but the roads. I mean, Milano is now reusing a large part of their roads for multiple purpose. Vilnius in Lithuania now is opening all the public spaces like to restaurants and cafes, so they have more space to do social distancing between tables. So I think everyone building and planning cities are going to be concerned with everything that we have been learning during this crisis.
Yeah, I can take the next question, which is about how will status luxury evolve or dissolve in the post-corona era. I read that Hermes, the sales are good. I think we have to see where we land with the data, because obviously it's changing every day. I've read some reports that online sales are really up, some reports that actually they're not that up. There's a lot of mixed information, and the luxury market obviously is alive because some people are above the economic shock of COVID. However, one thing is sure is that the luxury market has really, really bet on China for years. And in some cases, over 50% of their business is in China. And with the huge impact of travel, we don't know how hard it's going to be to travel in the near future yet. We don't quite know all the measures that are going to be in place. And that's going to really affect the luxury market, people who come to Europe, for example, to buy from these luxury brands. So I think the luxury market will adapt, and it will always be there because Marie Antoinette, had was luxury. It's just built in that kind of status symbol, but there is more and more room for democratization and redefining what luxury really was, which was a lifestyle.
Yeah, there is a lot to redefine after that crisis. Maybe I can take the next one.
Yeah.
Do you see how the self-care is impacting seniors? I feel they are a bit forgotten right now. Yes, you're right. They are completely forgotten, but this is not new. If you are looking for a phone for older people, it's very hard to find. You have the choice between just maybe one or two model. If you are looking for nice sleepers for older people, it's really hard to find. So I think globally, in many of our countries where we do have a lot of seniors, they are forgotten. So I would say that unfortunately, it's not new. Of course, we are forgetting them even more with the COVID, but I think this crisis is just revealing everything. It's putting a stronger light on everything that was already there. So the fact that we don't take care of our old people is something, unfortunately, that is there for many, many years.
And I think I would add also to that I think it's a huge paradox in our society, because the global population, especially in Western countries, is dramatically aging, and the biggest spending power soon will be the older population. So I think we have a huge market opportunity to take much better care of seniors, especially the seniors of in just a few years' time. They're cool. They're with it. There's the now popping up co-working spaces for seniors, et cetera, et cetera. So we just need to. This is a market. I think if I had a child today that was about to figure out what they want to do for university, I would say go into senior living, like go into nursing even maybe. I think this is the job of the future, really.
Yeah,
One
because
of the
this
jobs.
cannot be done by a machine. I mean, robots are nice, they can be useful, but not for everything.
Yeah. Ud has a question about fabric sourcing and what could be frugality, and how frugality and rituals could impact fabric sourcing. I could quickly respond to that. Just to your point, Ud, there was an interesting talk last week hosted by Fashion Revolution, and Mara Hoffman, who's this very sustainable designer in the US. she explained that what we could do, for example, is just work with less fabrics, do exciting collections, but work with less fabrics. And possibly more local fabrics, or just in general, really look at the amount of stock we use in fabric. That was one way of looking at it. And I know this could have huge impact for the suppliers, and we're going to need to figure that out. So the very first action will probably be just figuring out the solutions, even if it's not perfect.
Yeah, maybe we take two more
Yeah,
questions. So maybe, yeah, I can mix two questions. The first question is, how do you see retail, workplace, and public gathering evolve with the distanciation requirements? That can goes with, do you think self-isolation, self-preservation will go on even when the lockdown is over? So I would say that I think this is a game changer. I mean, the thing that we don't have a vaccine yet, that this will happen maybe in 1 year, 1 year and a half. So it means that there will be a time that we will have to live with it, with the fact that it can be dangerous to be close to people, with the fact that it's dangerous to meet people, that we need to have social distancing. It's not just because we have been on lockdown for 4-6 weeks that the whole thing is over. The whole thing is not over. We had been on lockdown to try the hospital to be a bit less crowded, and so that they can help if people are sick. Now we need masks. Everyone should wear a mask. But the thing is that, yes, there will be social distancing for a while. So it means that the public gathering are going to be affected. The retail is going to be affected. The workplace, especially, for instance, big open spaces, you know, like huge level fulfill of, I don't know, 100 people. This is not going to be possible. So it means that all the places where the people used to be crowded are going to need to be changed as possible as they can. And it means also that there might be our home will still be the place where we feel the most safe. So the safest place in the future is going to be home. So it means that, yes, people who can do self-isolation will keep on doing self-isolation. We will be happy to be back home because this is the place where we know we can take off the mask, we can speak with the people we are living, and we have more, in a way, more freedom at home. And outside, it's still going to be seen as a place with danger for maybe a couple of months, that's for sure.
I just, you know, with the next question, Cecile, I think there's a few questions that kind of say the same thing. So I might try and like just address them together, like in terms of Sebastian's question, in terms of people having a continuous social engagement, and Tina, your question as well, Tina Gorgon, of just, you know, will people forget what they committed to? I think these are really good point. And I guess, yes, forgetting bad experiences is built into our DNA, is part of our survival mechanisms. But however, we can remember, we can have a role. I know, for example, you know, I know many of us have lived through terrorist attacks, but just living through 9/11, it was incredible what was happening right after that. And then it's true, we went back to our normal lives. But I think we will need to see a continuous social engagement. And we will need to, as people, as organization, track that. If people are being really hypocritical, or if they're greenwashing, or if they're completely switching their behavior, we have to call them out on it. And I guess that's kind of a bit part of our activist brain that needs to wake up. And then there's just another question in terms of Camilla and looking at people wanting comfort, care, and utility, but then it maybe being a backlash where we go into like real eccentric fashion. And I definitely think that's a possibility, and something I wrote about for Day's Beauty. where I talked about the Baroque dystopians. So this future tribe that kind of lives on the street, recycles garments and things like that, but is really also super over the top. And so, yeah, there's always the cycle of trends is an elastic effect. You know, it goes one way and then it goes the other. So I
And
think,
maybe I just would like to add that obviously it will not be when we will be after that lockdown, that just the day after everything is going to change. After the lockdown, at the end of the lockdown, nothing will have changed that much. But it means that that lockdown have rewired the way we think, the way we act. We had been starting to use less, not to buy so much, to do things by ourselves. I mean, to cook, to make bread, to take care of ourselves, to be more interested by rituals and things like that. So I think all those things that we had been doing for a couple of weeks, they will have effect later, not just the day after, but on a longer term. So you will have a very short-term trend just after, at the end of the lockdown, and then you will have long-time effect after the end of the lockdown.
yeah, and just quickly, Michelle talks about the, you know, rural areas and connections with city. Yeah, we don't know yet, but there might be a point where some people just who left for the countryside during the lockdown think, you know what, actually, I really like it here. We don't know yet what's going to happen with urban planning and all of that, but
no, but we know that things are going to change, and we see that already with all the pop-up bike lanes that are arriving in so many cities, in I think 18 cities in France, but also in US, but also in Berlin, in many cities. There are pop-up bike lane, and now they are pop-up, but they might be permanent, and this is going to affect. There is I don't remember the city in US, but there is a huge city in US that there were 3 private golf that were only open for a few people, rich people. Now those 3 golf are open for everyone as public park. So, you know, it means that those things like that that are happening are really game changing, and they are really signs that things are changing. So it might take time, but it means that there will be a before and there will be an after. And maybe we need to conclude because
yeah,
we
I think
are,
so. We started, you know, almost 5 minutes late, so I think we're
so
within
it's
our 40-minute. Everyone
okay.
a
That's
little
cool.
bit longer. Thank you. And yeah, I really love doing these 3 sessions with you, Cecile, and having everyone and seeing familiar names come back every week. It's thank you. It's been really great. And yes, I guess we will see how things go with the lockdown and continue with our dialogue with everyone.
Yeah, and yeah, for the moment we are just on pause with the Reconnect series, but we might be back on track again. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, and let's stay in touch for the future.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of positive vibes and, you know, distancing hugs, you know, safe hugs to everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
bye, everyone.